Hi, it's Jasper Blake from B78 Coaching. Let's talk about ways to measure effort. The simplest way to think about it is that we have two primary thresholds. We have a first ventilatory threshold, which happens around 65 to 70% effort, and we have a second ventilatory threshold, which happens around 85% effort. That's usually the one people are most familiar with because we also associate it with a lactate or anaerobic threshold. So usually when you're doing harder workouts, that's where you'll be hanging out, either just at it, just below it, or just above it. Now, how do the zones fit into that? Most people will be familiar with the zone scale, zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, zone 4, zone 5. From a physiological standpoint, those should always be based around what's actually happening in and around the threshold. So zone 1, for example, would be your recovery zone, and that should be happening below that first ventilatory threshold or below 65 to 70%. Zone 2 is typically right around that first threshold, and it happens around 65 to say 75%. Zone 3 happens between the first and the second ventilatory threshold. Sometimes we call this no man's land because it's not a great place to spend time. It's a little bit too hard for the first threshold and not quite hard enough for the second threshold, but nevertheless there's a zone 3 that happens between the two thresholds. Zone 4 is usually in and around that second threshold. Great place to spend time. These are your harder workouts, maybe interval lengths that range from sort of 3 minutes to 15 minutes depending where you are on that scale. And zone 5 typically happens above the second threshold. The most important thing you guys need to consider for Ironman is getting fast at that first threshold. That's where we're most efficient for Ironman racing, down and around that first threshold.